Okay, morning guys. So a bit of a rainy day in Dresden today, and I'm just heading off up to the garage, but taking a detour via Porsche Dresden. I've ordered what might be the last part for the project for the 911. It's a rubber bushing which sits between the throttle body and the support which supports it to the engine. So it's really expensive. It's a very small part, and it's 25 euros. So I'll show you it when I pick it up. So I've just picked up that part, and when I picked it up from the counter, I realized no, it's the wrong part, it's too big, but I've taken it with me anyway just to check. And you can see this is the replacement M4 part that I bought online, which matches in every way to the original, except the thread here. It's M4 and the old one's M6. And you absolutely need M6 because that's what fits into the housing here. So, Porsche have got the wrong part registered in their catalogue, so I'm going to have to talk to them about that on Monday and try and get the right part. Okay, so I said in the video last night that I'd have to go home and do some research into the torque wrench settings for the bolts. So what I needed is these ones at the top of the muffler bracket, underneath, these ones to the muffler, the engine carrier to the engine itself, and and the manifolds to the cylinder heads. So these two, top and bottom, also the four of this bracket, are 23 Newton meters. Manifold to the cylinder heads are 25 Newton meters, and the carrier to the engine is 30 Newton meters. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, I'm just going to tighten down the engine carrier. What I didn't show you before is, although this is stainless, this bracket that goes under here, it basically connects to that to hold on the mufflers or the catalytic converters. It was looking pretty sorry for itself, so basically I cleaned it up and gave it a coat of heat resistant paint, so it looks a lot smarter. So in fact what I'm going to do is put a little bit of copper grease just between the two. That hole lines up with that. So yeah, I'm just going to coat this with a bit of copper grease just so the water doesn't get in there, because actually when I took it apart, the last time I took it apart was about, 4 years ago when I did the entire exhaust system, and since then there's some rust in there. So I'm just going to coat this again with some copper grease. I used installation paste last time, and I've still got some of that, and I'm going to use that for the bolts on the rest of the exhaust system, because that was really good. They all came apart really nicely. So that goes on there. Those two nuts go on there. Say 30 Newton meters torque. Actually not that tight. Okay, I'm going to do that to 24 Newton meters. Maybe not quite to 24 Newton meters, because actually that's going up. That's tight enough. It's probably about 15 on that one. So let's get these bolts in here. I'm just going to give them a quick clean up, I think, because they're quite dirty. I remember now, actually, when I did the exhaust system a few years back, these bolts were no, that's not good. Notice that they actually rub at the back when they go in. I need to shorten those a little bit.
So other than not finishing my sentence there, I shortened those bolts off camera and they were fine.
Okay, so I'm just going to reassemble this side so you can see the steps that are required to put everything back together. So I've got the heat shield for the coil packs, and the bolts. I've got the bracket for the muffler, and also the holding plate for the muffler as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the heat shield on first, the two brackets together, because you need to torque the underside, and then I'm going to put it all onto the engine. So you can see those brackets there, they're not original to the car. The old ones, which I took off the engine when I started the restoration, were absolutely knackered. The brackets were rusted through and those studs you can see there were snapped off. So I scoured eBay for a used set and actually picked them up for a pretty good price. Okay, got all those in, and now it's time to torque them up. Okay, so putting these chaps back on. Don't forget the clips there, very fragile. Then press these down without getting your glove stuck. And put the dust cap back over. That one goes in there. Again, that little clip. Dust caps back down. Okay, so let me get you in there. Okay, these are the little clips I was talking about. I renewed those a couple of years ago, and as I say, Torx bolts at the top and the bottom, 23 Newton meters, and yeah, then the silencers, one of which is over there, will go on next. What I wanted to do actually, because I've got both silencers, the old sports exhaust, the original Porsche sports exhaust system, and the new one from Design Tech. I never actually weighed them to compare the weights of them when I bought them, so I'm going to do that now. There you go. I've got the old sports exhaust down from the shelf, and they are clearly noticeably much heavier than the Design Tech replacements, which I got from Design 911 a couple of years ago. So I'm just going to put these on the scales. I hope you can see the... Can I zero that? Yeah, there you go. So putting those on. They are 10.6 kilos for those, 10.6. And these are the Design Tech ones. Now bearing in mind I've still got the end tips on there. Oops, sorry, the end tips, and I'm not taking those off because they're all lined up. But even with those on there, let's have a look. 8.56. So 8.56, so it's basically 2 kilos weight saving. And you imagine, I don't know how much that thing weighs here, but maybe it's like just over 2 kilos weight saving. So yeah, on the basis that these original units are made out of mild steel, and they were incredibly expensive the last time I checked with Porsche. I think they were like 6 grand or something for a set. And I got these from Design 911 for, how much was it now? I mean, they've gone up now, but I think they were something like about £1,000 pounds, I think they were. So weight saving and cost saving. And actually, in the time that I've owned these, I haven't done many miles, to be honest, but they've been fine. You know, they work perfectly. They install really well. The sound is slightly different. I think it's a bit more raw with this, but you don't have any drone when you're going along or anything. And it's a nice alternative. I think they are a little bit louder than the originals. I do really like the originals and the sound that they give, but it's just unaffordable for the normal person to buy a set of those. I mean, these, I'm sure I could possibly repair them because they've gone at the seams here where I filled them some time ago, and they've gone here as well, and you can hear, they've got stuff inside, so they are knackered. But maybe they're salvageable somehow, but I'm not going to throw them away. So not only are the Design Tech exhausts a lot lighter and cheaper than the originals, but they're also a lot smaller, as you can see here. So I thought while I've got the mufflers off the engine, I'll give them a quick clean up, but actually these end tips could look a lot better. So actually a friend of mine in the UK, he rubbed the insides down here and painted them black, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So I've just done this one here. First coat, it's actually anthracite I've put on there, and yeah, I'll get another couple of coats on that and see what it looks like. Okay, so just while I'm waiting for the muffler paint to dry, I've just turned the jack round, and I'm trying to line up the engine with the car now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive it down, or lower it down on the lift very carefully, pull the handle of the jack back, and then see if I can get it in line. So at this point I was lining up the engine and gearbox because I was very apprehensive about lowering the car on top of it. Although that said, the gearbox isn't attached yet, I was just lining up the engine. And here, although I've sped up the footage, it took me a long time to crawl about under the car, check everything, and lower the car down bit by bit. I actually caught one of the connectors on the left-hand side of the engine, but it was a small price to pay because it ended up going down absolutely fine. Okay, just give you a quick look how we're getting on. That air box or that canister is definitely going to hit the side there if I carry on like that. I think actually, let's have a look. I mean, where we could see from is the engine mounts. Yeah, they're quite well lined up. Let's have a look over here. Oh, and of course I'm going to put the gearbox on, but I just want to get the engine in the right place before I do that. Okay, I think that is pretty much online. Oh, I've got to move the oil neck up. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Yeah, maybe that will fit nicely then. Okay, well, let's go down a little bit further. So I thought that I could actually lower the car down and, sort of push that oil neck, that oil filler neck there through, but it just didn't work, and there's no way of bending it around. And bearing in mind it was new and it cost €100, certainly didn't want to split it. So what I did is I raised up the car again and sort of, you can see me messing about with it there, just tried to sort of maneuver it up beyond the rear cross section so that it fitted through when I brought the car down. But I did that off camera and it worked fine. Okay, just a quick update. So it's going in. I've got to keep that there because the boot will close if it latches. So yeah, it's going well. I've got the oil neck past the cross member. Oops. That looks like it's all going to fit in there. Everything's going quite smoothly, so let's just have a look here. They're all lined up. That's lined up. And yeah, I think it's looking good. Right, so I think I've got that lined up pretty well. I don't think I'm going to need to go any further down than that because the engine mounts line up and everything else is lining up. That's clearing the sides and it's looking good. So what am I going to do now? I'm going to mark that on the floor where that is, and I am going to, I guess, attach the gearbox. So, got the car back up in the air. I've had to put a strut underneath the bonnet because it just fell down on my hands. So I've definitely got to replace that strut. Either that or it just needs using again, but I think it's gone. So yeah, I've marked out on the floor where the engine needs to be. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm now going to wheel the gearbox over and offer it up to the engine. So I haven't used the engine hoist much at all in the garage. I used it a couple of times for the Land Rover, but this is the perfect job for it. So I quickly assembled it, and it is incredibly heavy, by the way, but the perfect piece of equipment for the job. Okay, so I've got the engine hoist lined up and attached to the gearbox. I'm just going to bring this up, put it as straight as I can, I think. Maybe it's not quite straight enough. But I'm just going to bring it to the level of the engine. And what am I going to do? I'm going to have to drive the engine back, actually. I've got to keep it straight. How are we doing? Oh, let's just move that. Yeah, a little bit higher. Well, quite a bit higher, actually. There we go. Careful. Get down somehow. Let me think about that for a minute. Okay, so this is a lot of hard work trying to get this gearbox on, I must admit. It's very difficult. It's taken a long time to get not very far. It just doesn't want to go in. So this was really precise work to get this gearbox fitted up to the engine. It seemed simple, and even when I got the bolts in, it took a lot of faffing about, lining up, micro adjustments. I mean, it must be point something of a millimetre to get it to fit, but finally I got it to go. Okay guys, geez, I've finally done it. That took such a long time. It is so precise, lining up the gearbox with the flywheel. It's phenomenal. It took forever. You know, I had to, I mean, it's all logical really, but I had to level out the engine as best I could, you know, and that was really putting shims underneath and leveling and stuff, and then doing the same with the gearbox. And I tried to fit it about 3 times, I think. Yeah, and on the third time it went in, and yeah, I don't know what you think, but I mean, it didn't just slide straight in. I had to use the bolts, like nip them up bit by bit. But when it didn't work, the bolts didn't pull it in. And when it did work, the bolts, you know, obviously pulled it in, and it felt good. So I don't think I've stressed anything or strained anything. I've just turned the engine over and it turns. So yeah, my goodness, that was a lot of work. So I'm going to take the engine hoist away now, because I've got it all supported on the jack there. Okay, so just going to uncover the mufflers to see what they look like. scratch them first. Yeah, they look really good. I'm pretty pleased with that. All right, I'm going to take them inside now. Okay guys, so I've just done a bit of tidying up and I finally got the gearbox on the engine, and it took, I tell you, ages. It has to be so perfectly in line that there's just no messing about. So I tried it first time, absolutely no luck. And then I had to go back and have a look at my engine stand, and I had to lift the engine slightly to get that perfectly straight. And then I used my engine hoist, as you saw. And yeah, I had to level that really perfectly. And then finally it went in. It did go in on the bolts. So I had to sort of inch it in, but it felt okay. It didn't feel like it was stressing anything. And I've already turned the crank and everything moves. So I'm pretty pleased with that. So the other thing, I've got my mufflers here. The paint's now dried on the inside. I'm quite pleased with that, looks pretty good. I also gave the tips a good old polish. So they're looking nice and clean. What happens is tar spots get stuck to it, and it's a right bugger to get off. No, they're looking pretty good. So I'm going to fit those now. So with the mufflers going on and the brackets already installed and having got the gearbox on today, it's a real milestone for the project, and it's really, really exciting. I don't know if you can sort of recognize it in my voice when I'm narrating or when I'm doing the documentary, but sometimes I feel as though that I'm more excited in my head than I do sort of let on, but this is really exciting. Okay, so mufflers are back on. And yeah, like I said when I took this off 2.5 years ago, it's just so massive when it's just all built up. Obviously the cats have got to go on yet, but I've got to work out what I'm going to do with them, because yeah, the cats are... I've got someone lined up who can coat them, but I'm in two minds, because ideally I'd coat them when the O2 sensors are removed, but I can't get them off. And I've seen other people on YouTube who've tried to take them out, and unless you live in a dry state in the US, they just shear the thread. So I think what I might do, just to not delay the project anymore, is coat them with a rust converter and then put some resistant paint on, which I know won't really hold, but at least it'll get me through to the autumn. And then when the car comes off the road in October, then I can take the cats off and do something proper with them. But it just gets the car back on the road in the meantime. But I've obviously got to do that first. So yeah, here it is, with almost everything attached. Okay, so I'm just painting the cats here. So what I'm using is, it's a heat resistant spray, which I'm sure won't work. It says it's up to 800 degrees. I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but I've done all this before and it just flaked off. But who knows, maybe it'll work. I quite like the dark color. So I've given these a couple of coats. This has had one, the other one hanging in there has had 2 already. So I'm just gonna do this, and I'm going to pop it inside, and I'm going to clean up and go home, because it's been a really long, hard day. That gearbox was a right pain, but I'm really pleased I've got it all attached. So I'll see you next time.